What the hell is Saw Sports or whatever that last call was talking about? What the hell is that?
Guys are from Free Love, man.
What's the motherfucking deal? Welcome to Saw Sports. If you're not familiar with Saw Sports is a Houston, Texas homer network. It means we're talking all sports, but only Houston H-Town sports with flavor, if you will. Make sure you're following all the social medias down below on the bottom of your screen. If you need more information, check the description for all the information you need to anything Saw Sports related. But we're going to get into the top 5 games of 2020. And y'all know how we do the top 5 list. There's always a bonus, so make sure you stay tuned to the very end. Shout out to the roundtable. Shout out to Sauce Nation, man. Hey, let's stop wasting time. Y'all hit that subscribe button. Let's get in it to win it right now. All right, man. So game number 5, the 5th most important game of 2020, in my opinion. You know, I'm sure things will change as, you know, games get played and, you know, things start to hold weight. But right now, in the super early part, prior to the season, top 5 most important game. Number 5 is the Steelers in week 3. The whole Watt family reunion, if you will. You got 2 Watt brothers on the Steelers, Derek and TJ, and you got JJ on the Texans. So it'll be very interesting to see everybody come together. And, you know, again, I'm sure the family will be in the stands. It's going to be very interesting to see what kind of jerseys you wear, right? I mean, how do you decide, right? Anyway, but I think it's going to be very interesting. You know, TJ's very good. JJ been legendary. Derek, he's in the league, so you know, it'll be cool to see all of them to come together. I'm sure that JJ and TJ will be doing their best to outduel each other, even though they won't be on the field at the same time. And I think JJ and Derek might have a little FaceTime before it's all said and done. But like I said, it'll be a very interesting game to me. That's number 5. Let's go ahead and get into the number 4 most important game of the 2020 season, if there's even a fucking 2020 season, right? Of the 2020 season, according to the schedule that was recently released for the Houston Texans. Let's get a number 4 right now. No, that was a 5, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right now. All right. So the number 4 most important game is week 5 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And you say, what's Jacksonville? Why is that? Well, it's your first divisional game. You've already gone through a quarter of the season. You kind of should know where you're at. I mean, seasons are long, even though they seem short. There's a lot of different things that happen in those 16 games. But once you're a quarter of the way through, you should kind of have an idea. We've talked about the Texans having a struggling identity for a long time, but you should have an identity. Good teams should have an identity by the first quarter of the season to kind of know what their trajectory is. And again, like I said, your first divisional game, you've gone through some tough opponents. You should kind of see where you stack up in the division. Jacksonville's always interesting. Because, like I said, you know, in the last few years, they've had a really good defense. Lost a lot of pieces, but they went out and draft, replaced a couple of pieces. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that if we're going all in on Minshew Mania. Again, first divisional game, week 5. I think that is the 4th most important game of the 2020 season. But let's go ahead and get into the next, the top 3 right now. So now as we're making our way into the top 3 games, my fingers all fucked up, top 3 games of the 2020 season, I think we go back into the division. I think we go to the last game of the season, and that's the Tennessee Titans. And you will say, well, Tennessee, we're generally pretty good against Tennessee. They don't really win against it unless there's just some type of ineptitude going on or some type of just something happens. You were really not fearful of them. But Tennessee had a good run last year. Came out of division with us. But they went further than we did. And y'all know my thoughts on Bill. Y'all know my thoughts on the other teams all going to the AFC championships. We're not going to get into that rant right now. Catch on the live stream Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. on this channel. If we're not talking Texas, then we're on Saw Sports TV at 6 p.m. talking about it. Make sure you guys join the Patreon if you want to become a member of the Discord to have those offline, those real locker room talks if you enjoy that about the Texans. So make sure to consider that, patreon.com/Saw Sports. Yes, shameless plug. But the reason why I say the Titans, because they're a good team. They were a good team last year. And I think they overachieve a little bit, but I expect them to be battling it out with us. If there's any competition for winning the division this year, even though I don't think I think other teams got a little bit better than where I feel the Texans did. It could be my own fandom. But I expect it to be the Texans and probably the Titans going into week 17. This game may hold some weight. And if it does, it should be very exciting, right? If we're talking about winning the division, if we're talking about somebody maybe not making the playoffs. And again, the AFC South has become a much tougher division than a lot of people want to give them credit for. So I think this will really actually be pretty interesting. I expect the Titans to rely on Henry a lot. expecting to have a good year, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this Texans defense, especially when I have questions about their run-stopping ability. But that's my third game. Let's go ahead and get to the top two. Stop wasting time. Number 2 coming up right now. All right. So as we get down to the last two, and don't forget there is a bonus. There's always a bonus. All right, whenever we do the top 5, whether it's here and we're talking Texans, whether it's on Soft Sports TV. Shout out to Hector, and he's giving you Astros and Dynamos content. I'm gonna get back to the Rockets. I promise. There's definitely some Rocket stuff to talk about. The bonus is, the top 5. We always give you a bonus, so always stay tuned for that. Whether you're watching anything Soft Sports related. Now, my top 2 is probably going to be different than a lot of people. And I think I know what you're expecting, and I know you're going to say, Honcho, you're a fucking dick for this. But whatever, it is what it is, right? My number 2 game is week 1, NFL kickoff. And you're like, how, Honcho? It's the NFL kickoff, most important game of the season, no matter what. It starts the season off. How can this be your number 2 game for the Texans? I'll explain when I get to the number 1. But the number 2 game, Kansas City. Got so much riding on this game. You got embarrassed out of the playoffs. You've seen Lonnie, you've seen Justin Reed talking about it, that they're mad. And it's good to see somebody on the Texans actually say something, like there is a pulse on the Texans, that there are players with pulses. And I've told you, there's only a couple of guys that I feel like have a little dog in them, and funny that it happened to be Reed being one of them. Lonnie, definitely. You traded away one of your guys. And then I think Deshaun has, it's a different type of dog, because a quarterback can only be a certain type of dog. He has to be a finesse dog. I don't even think that's a thing, but whatever. So there's so much revenge, right? You got the Watson-Mahomes storyline. You got the playoff storyline. You got, the Super Bowl champ. They have the Super Bowl hangover. It's so much. And we're talking about the future of the AFC. We can talk about some of the things that happened in the near past. Will Watson move into that upper echelon of those guys this year? We're talking MVP or Super Bowl appearance. Like some of the younger guys. You can talk about your Lamars. You can talk about Mahomes doing both of those. There's so many storylines. Again, y'all there's no way any other game is bigger than this, Honcho. How is this your number 2? Well, if you want to find out what the number 1 game is, coming up right now. Let's stop wasting time. Let's get into it, and I'll tell you why this is my number 1 next. All right, so finally we get to number 1, and you're like, Honcho, I'm already disappointed in this video. I've already thumbs it down because I don't like what you're saying. You're making me upset. I get it. I understand. I'm going to get to there's a few reasons why this game is number 1, and the very last reason I'm going to give you is why it's number 1 over every other game that could possibly happen this season, if this season happens. And that is week 2. Baltimore coming to town. And you're saying there's no way that week 2 is more important than week 1, right? NFL kickoff, Patrick Mahomes, the team that ran you out the playoffs, right? Well, here's the thing, right? Last year we figured, we'll see the Chiefs again. We beat them in the regular season. We can bang with them in the playoffs. Okay. And I think the outcome of what happens in week 1, whether you win or lose, it's more pronounced depending on what happens in week 2. So say you beat the Chiefs. People say Super Bowl hangover. The Texans aren't for real. They did it last year. But then you go to week 2, and we're talking about Baltimore, another team that was basically favored to win the Super Bowl late last year, and then, Tennessee came in and embarrassed them. That's another thing. You're talking about a team in the playoffs who got embarrassed by Tennessee. If they come to your house, again, after they embarrassed you last year, just shamed you in every facet of the game, like you didn't look like you belong, and you allow that to happen in your house, well, then I think you have to start talking about, that's when you're going to start talking about separation between the greats, the great teams, the who could be the Ravens, it could be Baltimore, it could be who knows, teams every year, it kind of changes a little bit. But then you're just going to start talking. That's when the Texans get out of that conversation. If you don't beat the Chiefs and you don't beat Baltimore, well, now you kind of fall out of that conversation early on. You have to do some stuff throughout the season to kind of get back, put in that conversation. So I think you could lose to the Chiefs and beat Baltimore, still remain in that conversation. Super Bowl champs, brought back most of their team, so you're going to be like, okay, well, you can forgive the Texans for that one. But if you lose 2 of those, especially one at home, then you're kind of out of that conversation. That's why it's important. But the most important reason, all right, and Baltimore got better. They added Queen and Dobbins, so that's going to be very interesting. So I think this team is still going to be a very good team. But the most important reason why this is the number 1 game over everything else that I have talked about, every other game that could possibly happen this season, is because this game is being played September 20th, and that is my birthday, and that's all that matters. with that being said, let's go ahead and get to the bonus. That's my number one. Let's go ahead and get to the, I'm sorry, actually, before we get into the bonus, I got something I got to talk about with y'all real quick. Let's get into that right now. Now, before we get into the bonus, man, you know I got to do a little bit of shameless self-promotion, man. Consider joining and signing up for the Soft Sports Patreon. If you want to become a member, if you want to come join the Discord conversation, like I say, it's a conversation we have completely offline, where everybody just kind of gets together. You can talk directly, voice chat or text if you just don't want to get the voice. Directly with the round table, like I said, we just talk often. Breaking news pops up. We discuss a lot of things in there that are not mentioned on the streams. And I mean, if you really want to see some of the behind the scenes element of how the round table interacts, if you just want to be a part of that, get a feeling of being a part of the round table, man, consider joining the Discord. Or you can do it via YouTube membership. Consider hitting that join button. There's several tiers there. If you're a Patreon supporter and you want to join the YouTube, the only real difference, like I say, is the emojis, because I can't control that. So maybe consider joining at the $1.99 tier. You get the custom emoji and some other custom things, and you get the highlighted green name, plus the special Soft Sports badge for being a member. So I thank everybody who has become a member. But let's go ahead and get into this bonus. And you have to consider this is a very interesting game for a multitude of reasons. But let's go ahead and get into that right now. But other than that, y'all stay saucy. Y'all the freshest motherfucking ingredients in the world. We'll get to this bonus. Now, for the bonus, sounds so good, right? Bonus game. Let's skip all the bullshit. In Texas history, there have been 3 head coaches, but only 2 are really considered because we're talking about the ones who've actually won games, won the playoffs. So we talk about Gary Kubiak, we talk about Bill O'Brien, right? You got some people who are still loyal to Kubiak. You got some people who are diehard Billy O guys. Some who don't care for either one of them. Somebody wants somebody fresh and new in there. But you're talking about guys, the guy who got us to the playoffs, Kubiak, coming back with the Vikings, week 4. And assistant head coach versus, Bill O'Brien and that whole situation. And I'm wondering if the Vikings come out on top, how much do you attribute that to Kubiak? How much do Texans fans go back into the days of yesteryear, longing for the return of Gary Kubiak? It's still relatively early in the season, still the first quarter of the season when that game takes place. Or if you go out and you beat the Vikings, they're a good team now. So don't get it twisted. Like, does that salty the legacy of Gary Kubiak, for lack of a better word? Does it make it look worse? Does it not even fucking matter? Is it just a storyline that I'm reaching to try to grab? Anyway, let me know your thoughts, man. Hit that comment section below. What are the most important games? You laced your top 5 most important games. You stayed all the way through to this video. If you lasted this whole video, I want you to put a thumbs up. I just want to know who lasted all the way through the whole video. Just put a thumbs up in the comment if you have nothing else you want to comment. I'd love to see it. But again, I'm your host, Ed Honcho, man. I thank you for watching. If you watched all the way this far, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you tell a friend about the #1 Texans channel on YouTube. That is Soft Sports. Yes, even bigger than them. And we getting a little bit cocky. It's all good, man. Make sure you catch on the live stream. We chunk up produce. Y'all be cool like y'all be cool. Well, most of all, y'all stay saucy. Y'all the freshest motherfucking ingredients in the world. And I'm out. Perfect.